monitoring their readiness and preparedness to civil protection, I found several good practice which could be shared, for example, to my country, for example, in using, for example, technology, and I can also give one example of such good practice like a mobile app. In Estonia, it is called Biridi, and you can find very important information from what should we do, for example, in when there is no energy, or where is the close shelter, or I don't know, very important information. And I would say that those very simple tips for civilians are very useful, and even small countries can also share their good practice, share knowledge to other countries. That's why this discussion on the level of European Union is very, very important and necessary. Thanks.
Thank you, Alexandra. A quick question for you too. You talk about the national level and the importance of national institutions, which I think is obviously very important. You talk about something as practical as an app, in this Estonian example. During the pandemic, you may remember that Sweden and Finland did things rather differently. Well, Sweden did it differently to everybody else, basically. And one of the differences between those two countries was constitutional provisions for emergency situations. Basically, Sweden doesn't have any emergency provisions, which in some way affected the result that we saw in the rather unusual policy response. Do you prefer any particular model of constitutional provisions? Is the Finnish model where you can just quickly go into emergency mode better than the Swedish one?
I think that we cannot say that one of other model is the best because taking into account different crises, you mentioned pandemic, but also we can add other human-made or natural crises, and different models could be better or could be applied by different countries. Independently, and another point is that European Union countries have got different experience of defense system or civil protection system, and it is, I want to say that one model sometimes couldn't be adapted successfully in different countries because of such historical experience. In our region, I mean, I'm thinking about this, for example, Finland, the Baltic states, Poland to some extent as well. We have got similarities in sense of the perception of security. In Poland, for example, I mean, the model of defense, the whole society defense, the model when the whole society is involved into civilian protection, is said to be, especially for small countries or those countries which haven't got enough resources. And you can also think that Poland is not so small, but currently the regulation which we adopted this year is also based on such model of whole society approach. So I would say that it is like the title of our panel, I mean, new age of thinking about civilian protection. So I cannot answer your question yes or no. I mean, what option was better, but it depends on the perspective. And I would say that once more, we need a forum or area to discuss and then share our knowledge or experience, and then we have got opportunity as different countries to choose the best option.
Thank you, Maria. Let's, Alexandra, let us proceed to our third speaker, Vilja.
Thank you for listening us so patiently. As Nicholas mentioned, I was a very young advisor in European Future Convention almost 25 years ago. And I remembered all those talks, what will Europe be after 25 years? And I can confirm to you that Europe is much more different from what we were preparing for. We were worried about Turkish membership, not about war from Russia. So most probably after the next 25 years, we are as surprised about our progress or ability to prioritize as we are today. So we can do our best. The second paradox what I can give to you is I've been in last year researching about civil protection and inclusion of citizens to state defense, the volunteers in different formats. And I've been interviewing Estonian military leaders and officers about what they think is needed and interviewing at the same time Ukrainian officers. And those two talks don't talk to each other at all, because we like to deal with the problems what we can handle, not the problems what we need to handle. You know, this is the political wisdom. You only raise the problem what you can handle. And we like to talk. We like to think about the bigger strategy. So here comes the first example, how productive we are. Well, Finland has a deficit of bomb shelters for 1.3 million people. Then Estonia has the same deficit from 1.3 million people. But we only have 1.3 million people. There is not a single square meter of bomb shelters for civilian people. We haven't been building nothing at all during 3 years of war in Ukraine. There is only one siren in Tallinn. We have 40 more towns in Estonia. Nobody will know about airstrike. There are no equipment for that. We have been talking. We have been distributing the roles between state chancellery and different ministries, and complaining that there is no money, and then buying HIMARSes to give a preemptive strike against Russia. So clearly our talks and our works don't match at all. And we talk about resilience, but most of the people even don't know what it is, because it doesn't translate into Estonian language at all. I don't know how about Latvian one, but so you can always say that you want more of it. I'm not sure. Maybe we need less of resilience of our local Russian speakers, because as it was mentioned about sabotage, sometimes someone's security is someone's insecurity. We haven't been doing no studies at all where those people live who are danger for us. Let's say our defense police has said that they think we have 10,000 pro-Kremlin agents in Estonia. Most of them what they call sleeping agents, who do something only in a day they are tasked to do. And the days go. The war might start tomorrow, as it was said in Yes Minister serial, but what we have been doing, we haven't been even doing what Europe usually does. Have intensive debate and some legislation changes. There is not a single legislation change in Estonia during those 1,100 days. We haven't been reacting. We haven't been asking from Ukrainians openly. So if you could go back those days, what would you do immediately? Because they have told us, maybe we get sometimes later, they have been telling different stories, which always say, for example, that state is always late, lazy, and there will be nothing what you can get from the state if the war starts. There is only something what state will take from the citizens. I've talked with the Estonian Chief of Defense, and he says, we are fighting, you try to survive. The laws allow us to take your pickup truck with fuel and your food reserve. Of course, most of us have been lazy as well. I'm a head of apartment union, or how you call it. So a big 8-floor house with 50 families. And I told them that I would like to test what will happen with complete electricity when electricity is completely gone. Will the toilets function? Will the water supply function? Will the ventilation function? How does it work? And people refuse to do that. They say, we don't want to experience it. So we don't want to prepare for it. I asked from the people, do you have any food reserves? They say, after the tax changes in Estonia, you don't have any reserves. If you can survive to the end of month, that's a good thing. So most of people don't have more than 1 day reserve in their fridge. If you have kids, then even that is a good thing to do. We are advised to have 7 days food reserve. Imagine 4 kids and 2 parents having 7 days food reserve. How big the fridge should be. Where will I put it? We just talk. And we don't let people to train themselves. We don't let them to experience. We don't create the environment. This big building, we have 7 nearby buildings and 1 huge underground garage. But there is not a single toilet there. So 1,000 people could go there. But all the people refuse to put a little bit more money to have at least 1 toilet. I don't know will 1 do for the 1,000 people, but and that is a brand new house. So those are some examples what can be done. First, I think some people need to go to Ukraine, really take the lessons, not only about what will happen, but what can be done. And I think what now people start more to understand is we are not afraid about Russian tanks. We are afraid of Russian ballistic missiles. And that is the thing what we really need to understand. If those start to drop somewhere, what will we do? I live 45 kilometers from Russian border, so that's even artillery range. So it's maybe this is the encouragement also for the start. We need at least to start to understand what is the threat, and all of you need to test. What will you do when the day comes? Do you have your car tanked, fueled? Do you have a bag ready for 7 days life? Do you have some money? Maybe the last comment is that most of the Estonian people believe that Estonian men will run away from Estonia to Latvia. Oh, why? See, here they don't need to go to army, they say. But I even don't know will I get salary if the war starts and our college is closed. And maybe the last comment, we have also an old bomb shelter under our college. How do you think, is that a ready bomb shelter or it is used for something else? It's gym. So we have a lot of generals, colonels, majors, but we use the only proper bomb shelter for gym. Okay.
Thank you, Vila. A lot of talk at national level, a lot of talk at EU level, not a lot of action, as you say. I can sort of understand it more readily at EU level because of the EU's complex decision-making procedures, and perhaps there's a bit of a collective action problem there. Everybody wants to leave it to everybody else. But I'm surprised to hear about the lack of readiness and interest in being ready, even at national level in Estonia. Why? Why?
I think we are a little bit busy with all the other activities, what used to be important. So what we try to explain to people is that if you want to have Rail Baltic Green Deal and high Euribor at the same time with Russian aggression, then you will not survive. So we have to decide to postpone something. I'm not saying that we should postpone Rail Baltic forever, but maybe for a couple of years. And we need also European push to us to prepare more, and we need this push not only in the legislative level. We need some supportive mechanism from those countries who are not in the Russia border. Of course, they don't feel the need, but they have the resources. For us, it's the defense budget is already more than 5%. We cannot survive with that. We cannot have more. So those like Luxembourg, who is having like 0.5, should now contribute because it's their security as well. So Europe can do something. Of course, the legislative process takes more than 2 years, and the war might start for that time. But we haven't even started during the last 3 years. So my proposal for Europe, more political instruments and push to have some. We can have directives about everything, so why not about civilian protection?
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much to all of you. We don't have a massive amount of time on this panel, only about 20 minutes left. I want to leave plenty of time for questions, but there's perhaps one issue maybe two that I want to put to all 3 of our panelists for commentary. I can start with this question, which I can turn to you first, Maria, to ask you this. Pandemics, Russian invasions, sabotage, man-made disasters, aren't they very different types of threat? And is it really credible? Is it really realistic? Is it helpful to lump them all together and treat them as part of the same policy initiative?
Actually, yes, I think it does make sense to treat them as maybe not the same thing, but as something that can be approached from a similar perspective. As someone who is currently trying to construct a new platform for crisis simulations, I've actually looked into this in some depth, and using AI as well as people do these days. It is actually very similar in the way that if you are in an organization, for example, a critical infrastructure company, something happens. It might be at first a natural disaster, and then somebody might exploit this situation and also have a cyber security breach and, try to do something to your equipment, for example, using this natural disaster as a multi-hazard kind of scenario, which is unfortunately also realistic. You basically have to be able to activate your crisis response. And your readiness to activate your crisis response, you have all sorts of contingency plans, but it's different from what you do if something happens. Then there is the stress, there is the time pressure, there is a public response, and the public demands something from you, etc. The mechanisms are not so dissimilar. You take different technical steps, but the mechanisms are not so dissimilar. So yes, it does make sense to have the same framework for response.
Okay. Vilja, I can turn to you with the same question.
Can you please repeat?
Yeah, is it useful to construct common mechanisms to address very different types of scenario?
We can construct them, but we need to allocate resources because since we are starting in Estonia this comprehensive approach to security, there has been a lot of talk, designing of mechanisms, but we didn't put any money in there. And as long as you create all kinds of schemes and PowerPoint slides, we have the deficit of manpower, and money is even easier. Money can be borrowed. But if you look to internal security, then you don't find enough people who are enthusiastic enough to do the thing and who know what to do. So basically, yes, directors can have their ideas and visions, and 15 years later we are back in the beginning where we total defense and we say, okay, the mechanism doesn't do anything if people don't have resources, if people don't have training. So if you don't train your policemen and because you don't have bullets, then that is where you should start, not from that you create a new strategy how to train them without bullets. But the same is everywhere else. We should honestly look at the deficits and ask where is money spent best and put the money there. For example, if we think that we need more firefighting cars or trucks, then that needs to be done today, because if the war starts, there is no availability of firefighters and trucks. So I'm a very practical person, but I had today even the fight with the city council about why they don't support our preparations for a war with a bomb shelter, because we still have these peacetime laws which say that you are not allowed to rebuild electricity system and canalization yourself, even if you want to pay for that. So am I demanding too much? They have their strategy, but I want my right to redesign the system which is not meant for the crisis, or even to understand how it can be done or how much it would cost. So that what I would suggest that the strategy should be to start today with something what people can do today, educate people, train the people, also understand how many more policemen you might need in the case of crisis. Because most probably, if we have 25% of Russian speakers, many of them will be threat, not cooperating with us. So that's just an example. But in practice, I of course read every day that there are debates in Prime Minister's Strategic Bureau about the new strategy. So.
Okay, Alexandra, any comments on that question about the diversity of threat and the similarity of response?
Yeah, I totally agree that we have been living in times when one kind of threat can quite simply be transformed into another threat, or different crises may appear at the same time. That's why I underline this whole society approach, that we have to be aware that it's not only responsible of the authorities, but also we as a common people, citizens, are also responsible for protection. But firstly, we have to know what we should do. So it is the point and responsible of municipalities or national authorities to introduce such program or to educate people, to introduce, for example, special programs for children at school, or send information to society what to do. So I would underline the specific responsibilities of the country, but also I would like to add that I can mention at least 4 points which are necessary in this perspective. Firstly, it is concrete responsibilities of country, of municipality, of different sectors, what to do. Second, in time of crisis. Secondly, I would also point that it is necessary to have cooperation between different sectors, like private companies, NGOs, authorities, and society, because I would say that even non-governmental organizations or business can also contribute to this discussion. Then strategic communication, it is also very important, because society has to know, and people should understand what is the main message from the authority. So it should be delivered in specific way to society. Finally, I mentioned 3 points. Okay, so I will stop. Maybe later I would also add something here, because
I'm sure it will come back to you.
Yeah.
But that gives me the opportunity to put a quick follow-up question to you and to my other colleagues too. And we should try to keep our answers quite brief here if we can. But it's about this whole of society approach, which you mentioned just now. Now, this, I suspect, was rather inspired by Sauli Niinistö himself, because this idea of total defense, totalförsvar, as it's called in Swedish, is very much a Finnish thing too. And it implies much of what you described, that is the incorporation of the whole of society, not just governmental institutions, but also civil society and business in order to defend the country. Now, I have always learned that a prerequisite of this sort of approach is a high level of trust in the state and its institutions, which you traditionally have found in countries like Sweden and Finland. I've already read reference to some voices who were arguing that the attempt to mobilize European society, which we see now in this preparedness report, has a sort of sinister overtone in a way. If you don't trust the institutions of the state, if you don't trust the ability of society to act collectively, if you're not sure about that, this can also this totalizing effort can seem a little bit sinister, perhaps. What can we do to try to assuage such fears of state overreach?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that the effectiveness of this model of defense system or civilian protection system is determined by the engagement of society, but it is also strictly connected with trust and loyalty, or the sense of belief that there are authorities who can help us, but and it is determinant of our engagement in this situation. So how could we increase such trust? I would say that it's the specifics of the particular country, and we all know that it is problematic how to engage the society, how to increase the level of trust. I mean, I have no simple answer for that, but I believe...
I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, probably we would organize another discussion on this topic, but I feel that it is not very simple. But yeah, I totally agree with you that it is important to aware that those issues are interconnected with each other.
Maria, any thoughts about the risks of a whole of society approach?
Well, there is the risk you mentioned, and that is that people might fear overreach. They might feel that those mechanisms might be used to somehow... yes, there is the risk you mentioned, which is that people might have fears regarding the state overreach. But at the moment, this risk is rather theoretical, I have to add. Because in most cases, I think what we are dealing with is not so much the problem of state overreach in terms of comprehensive defense, but the problem of not having enough resources and mechanisms established for even ensuring the basic functions, for example, of civil protection in many of our member states. So I think at the moment, what we should worry about, as we know, the risks of authoritarianism come from elsewhere. They come from some member states, some governments which find it okay to continue cooperating with the aggressor country as if nothing has happened in Ukraine. And I think that is a much more serious threat at the moment to rule of law in Europe than our concepts of comprehensive defense.
Thank you, Maria. Any quick thoughts from you, Vilja?
Yes, we have been thinking in Estonia about this as well, as our Ministry of Defense asked us to propose some ideas, and they haven't changed any legislation, as I said, so even having a license for the normal weapon is very complicated, so you have to be a rifleman, or not rifleman, a huntsman. So I need to go to the forest to kill some animals to have a proper big gun. There is no way to have a big gun for home protection. I can only have small things like pistol or revolver. So I asked the people directly, what is wrong if I want to protect my home and my country? Why can't I have one rifle with my own money? And if you see something wrong with that, then let's try to solve the problem. The same is with supplies of medicine and ammunition. You are not allowed to have anything what is prescription in the medicine or any ammunition if you don't have rifle. So I can't help any soldiers because I'm not allowed to buy something and give it to them. So what is the problem? We can once again have a medical check for me, or psychological or whatever else, to have a proper conditions for keeping the reserves. Even if we have a bomb shelter, we cannot protect it because we are not allowed to keep any weapons there. We are not allowed to keep any fuel there. What the Ukrainian example said, that only those reserves are available which are in private hands in small quantities. Russians know the state reserves about fuel and everything else, ammunition. If you want to have your 1,000 bullets, you need to keep it in some private company, and you need to know where it is. So we need to start to move. State should start to try to trust us, and if we earn the trust, then more trust can be earned. So step by step.
Okay, trust working both ways then. Let us, in the few minutes that we have remaining, collect some questions. So please signal to me if there is a question or a comment you would like to put. It was almost a dead heat to see you put a hand up first, but please, first. Let's collect some.
Ines Vaivare, I represent Latvian National Platform for Development Cooperation, and I coordinate NGO group who would like to work in civic protection. As we are here stretching our minds about new concepts, I would like to put forward two provocative concepts for anybody's response. One, we are used to say civilians. But actually, this concept comes from civilians who are somewhere else. But now when we see that civilians are part of defense, shouldn't we talk or name them, like, for example, women, elderly, recognizing the diverse civilian groups with whom we need to work or who can be engaged also in protection? So maybe we shouldn't generalize anymore. And another thought, humanitarian aid. This has been the world of INGOs. INGOs with millions of turnover, big business. And now it's all crashed with, of course, changes in US aid and so on. Is Europe ready to totally different approach in humanitarian aid, what we saw also in Ukraine as the most effective, that it's nationally based and national NGOs are having bigger roles than INGOs? Maybe too provocative, but I'm ready to any answer.
Thank you. We appreciate provocative questions. Thank you. Yes, please.
Sorry. You have to switch up yours.
Okay. So Małgorzata Bonikowska, I come also from Poland, Warsaw University and the Center for International Relations, a think tank. One observation, one question. Observation is that now it seems that it's very much into the discussion, the idea of dual use, which is basically planning based on assumption that many things we can build and finance by the EU and by public funds already while thinking that they may be used for dual purpose, like in case of war or in case of any other threat. So I would like to ask you, maybe all, do you know some examples of already concrete projects implemented in this way? I can give you an example from Poland. We already implemented this principle in our national recovery plan, which is still under implementation. And we also switched or moved 30 billion zloty, which would be around 8 billion euro for security issues, including infrastructure projects. So that's one. And second is, I wonder, because we are discussing here more or less in the countries of Eastern flank, but I wonder in what way, maybe also you could contribute to the discussion as a UK, in what way this kind of concept that we are almost in a state of war is really shared by other countries who are much further from the eastern flank, especially north, south. Ireland is not even in NATO. I don't think we have any decision following what you are saying if we don't have really a clear perception of threat jointly shared. Thank you.
Thank you for that very interesting question. Yes, please, a third question.
Andris Goviņš, European Movement in Latvia and the European Economic and Social Committee. I would have mainly a question to Maria, because you have the institutional background knowledge from your time as Minister and Member of Parliament, and in relation to what you're researching now, is I'm wondering whether the approach which we have for a all-of-state approach is reflected, how it has to be reflected also in institutional setting, especially at EU level. Because the Niinistö approach, Niinistö report is wide, covering more or less all needed dimensions, including the civilian dimension, but looking into the white paper on defense, zero civilian. So actually you have a fragmented way of, there is a strategy on something, then there is a white paper on something, which is mainly due to the institutional competencies. Don't we need some kind of different work of dealing with the problems at institutional and structural level? That would be my question, with the big challenges which we have. Thank you.
Okay, let's deal with that that collection of questions. I'll start, I'll go in the opposite direction to which I started. So Vilja first. Pick and choose whichever ones you prefer to answer.
I have some comments maybe on different ones, but just about the groups, that is actually a very proper comment. We have in society a very valuable groups which we don't engage in some strange reasons. As we make jokes that we have veterans and veterinarians. Because what Ukrainian example said, that the veterinarians are very valuable in case of war, because they practice every day with the bodies. while the home doctor might not have done surgery at all in his life or her life. So they have found thousands of them and put them to good use and give them proper medicals. Veterans as well, they have experience. Even according to Estonian law, I'm too old to fight for my country. Does it look like this? So are the veterans. They are said to be too old for everything. They are in my age, and they have experience. We also have different groups like prison guards, very well-trained men who know Russian criminals very well and can understand their signals. And we have the huntsmen, who are practiced to be in the forest day and night, survive there without phone, and shoot the animal from 500 meters. So there are valuable thousands of those people. And one more thing what Ukrainians said, that older women with phones making photos can be much more dangerous than young men with a knife in his hand. So we should think about broader, old lady living in a strategic location is a big value, but we need to approach her now to tell her what to observe, how not to be visible herself, and so on. We need to talk to those people before the war starts, not after. About the UK, I was working in Ukraine in December 2021 for the United Kingdom. And what I can say, when the war started, the Ukrainian weapons were already in Ukrainian hands, and Ukrainian hands were trained already. So this is the work what we did there. They used the javelins and NLAWs because they had them, and they have been training. So UK saved the day, let's say it that way. The others didn't bring the weapons before the war. The others didn't train. So maybe bilateral partner is unavoidable. We need to have somebody who really supplies us in advance, because we cannot afford to do it ourselves. You have your frontline obligations and you have the other obligations. You can't do both at the same time, so is my message. And final comment on resilience, we really need to understand where we put our effort, because mostly we say resilience is the cheapest or the best way to spend a euro. But sometimes you don't need to have more phone apps. You need to educate people to be without phone if needed. And that is completely free of charge. Thank you.
Thank you, Vilja. Okay, Alexandra.
Yeah, very short comment concerning this, let's say, provocative question about the new approach towards civilian protection. I mean, I would not say that it is provocative, because the discussion has been starting how to treat different categories of people, and I totally agree with this approach, which is sometimes called more inclusive, that different groups are included into this approach, including, sorry for repeating those words, but I'm thinking about women, for example. And in Poland, the discussion has started when politician underlined the necessity to include more men into the compulsory training, and there was a question, what about women? And I would say that we need this approach because I mean, if we think about the whole society approach, we also have to find different sectors when different groups can do something, and especially paying attention to women, we would like we can also realize that there are several women who look after, for example, children. They are teachers. They work at the hospital, so they have got a special, on the one hand, capabilities, but also they can be more responsible for something than, for example, other groups. So I would say that it is a very, very important point to be included in the discussion, to make this discussion more inclusive and cover different points, which are very important.
Thank you, Alexandra. Maria, final words from you.
Yes, well, I think, of course, we have to think of different groups in the population, and it's also important not to alienate any of them in advance by seeing them only as liability. I think it's also important to consider that in case of real big threat, for example, a foreign invasion, we also need to be open to the fact that much of the civil population will actually want to evacuate and to leave the territory where fighting is happening. So we should also foresee that in terms of the routes and logistics as it happened in Ukraine. And we should look at whether our road structure, etc., leads in the right direction. But I also think that it's increasingly important to treat this comprehensive defense approach, or the whole society approach, whatever is called in different documents, and there are different languages used, as a way to also help civil society mobilize and take things more in their hands. Because without, as I mentioned in the beginning, without this bottom-up approach to it's our responsibility, and I'm not speaking so much in this case of buying weapons, but I'm speaking more in terms of knowing what is where in your neighborhood and where the vulnerable individuals live and how you get them out of their houses, and knowing who in the city council or in the agency or in your local department of fire and rescue service is responsible for evacuation, and knowing how to find them, and knowing, having their phone number, etc., etc., or if the phones don't work, which is also a possibility, having other channels of communication with them. All of this is the groundwork that we also need to do, thinking specifically of different groups in the population. That is absolutely so. And about the European institutions, very quickly. Well, there is this Lithuanian diplomat who is specializing on hybrid threats, Edvindas Baironis, and he wrote an article recently, and he counted, I think, 3 or 4 European commissioners who have some part of responsibility for hybrid threats. And no, this is not good. So I'm not going to propose now, off the top of my head, a solution, but I think that, for example, we have 2 Baltic states commissioners in key positions, the European External Action Service, the High Commissioner, and the Commissioner for Defense and Defense Industries, and I think they should be able to work together with their colleagues from the Commission to actually arrive at some kind of proposal about this European switchboard, if you wish, where we share information about incidents, about sabotage, about other threats that we identify nationally, and where we can quickly activate response based on that data. And that is the work, I think, that basically is for them to do.
Thank you. We have to conclude. I've learned a lot from this panel, so I'm very pleased that I was included. I hope everyone else here has too. And I think we should thank our excellent panelists in the customary way.